Question is actually your opportunity to be specific. Judges are looking for proof points, and in the business planning, we are seeking to see that you have a really close handle on what actually happened in the business from a numbers perspective. So we often look for percentages. However, one thing that I do encourage you to think about is not to use only percentages, because a 100% increase on 1 is 2. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is a great result. So if you can combine a percentage with the actual figures that go with it and show that percentage shift in improvement or in decline, it doesn't matter which direction it is. But that actually makes it really relevant, because as a judge, we will look at it and go, okay, this business, their goal in measurement terms, like show us what you plan to achieve with measurement data. This is what it was, and then this is how we've actually gone. So one of the big areas that we see for improvement is that move away from sweeping statements that lack proof points to turning that statement into something that has numbers, or a proof point, which, you know, could be social proof, it could be a whole range of different things, but something that says this makes it meaningful.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Ron, what questions stand out? Sorry, what submissions stand out for you with this question? What have they done really well?
Well, I think the important aspect is that word benchmarks in comparing what, in other words, growth is always a really good indication that business is on the up. We've obviously come through some pretty tough times in the last couple of years. So we are certainly looking for growth. And if there hasn't been growth and there's a really good reason for it, let the judges know. We understand that certain things happen at certain times. You could have been, for example, in an area where the road has been closed because of landslides or various other things, and people weren't able to get to you. Then please tell us about that, because obviously otherwise we're blissfully unaware. Making very sure that and as I said, as we mentioned last week, remember, everything is confidential. Only 3 judges at the New South Wales wards are going to see this. It's all of us will have signed a confidentiality statement. Nothing gets taken out of whatever you've written, and so don't be afraid to put financials and various other things. And I think Karina's point about percentages, be careful, because quite often we have had, we've had 150% increase, but we can't see what the 150% increase of anything was. So it's a sweeping statement that we mentioned a little earlier.
Yes, that's right. As Karina said, it could be 2 people to 3. That's 150%. Right. So,
yes. Laurie, can I just add a point? Ron made a really good point there about benchmarks, and I'd like to encourage you also to look to your specific industry sector and your industry associations, because it may be that they've produced some recent research data that actually shows what the benchmarks are within your sector, and it can be really valuable for us as judges to understand that the average growth in tourist parks for the year has been X%, and then you show us how you compare to that. So what you're doing is not only comparing how you've tracked year on year, because you compare to the previous qualifying period to the current, but you're also showing how you sit in terms of your industry set. And that's another thing that I celebrate if I'm reading a submission and I actually see that reflection on what's happening within your sector.
Yeah, great points. Absolutely. And it's a really good thing to do generically, isn't it, across the whole year? So, yeah, that's really great. And there's some dot points there that certainly you can read. And apologies, everyone, I forgot to press record at the start. So you might have heard the recording just start at this. But for those that are watching the recording, we just covered off the intro and the importance of GRI scores. So certainly reach out if you're unsure of any of that content. Okay, so let's get into the question. Now, you remember this question is in 2 parts. 2A and 2B. And as we say, we use one of the categories as a guide for this, but it is very similar across most categories. Now, just one point that I'd love to emphasize that Natalie articulated very well in the last couple of sessions, that if you are entering multiple categories, please read the questions properly because they change slightly, but also it's to the category you're entering. So if you are entering food and restaurants, and another one you might be entering the breweries, please talk about your food in the first one, talk about your beers in the second one. So really distinguish what is excellent in that category, because the judges will get very frustrated, can I tell you, as we start reading the same words that we might see in another submission. Okay, so let's jump into 2A, and Natalie has beautifully highlighted the words that are so important when you're looking at this question. So again, qualifying period, emphasizing the period in which where you are operating from 1 July 23, 30 June to 24. What were the innovations, enhancements to improve product, experience, service, and why? Ron, what's the thing that stands out to you with this question?
Okay, the very important word is improve. Don't just put down what you did and don't tell us how it improved anything, because improve is very important. In past years, again, I think a few of the entrants have got mixed up between the difference between experiences and services. Remember, your feedback that you've got is going to be proof for a lot of what you've actually got here, because this is where people are going to tell you that if they've stayed before, that they've really enjoyed what you've now done as an improvement or an enhancement or an innovation. Once again, Laura, you mentioned about, and Karina as well, about your industry association. Remember, in another question, another section that we're going to ask you is about your involvement in the tourism industry. So we are expecting you to be obviously working and being part of that particular sort of industry and the resources they have and the initiatives that they have. And once again, quite often what we're going to ask is, how did you find out about this? Where did these wonderful ideas, these innovations, enhancements actually come from? Because in many cases you've actually found out, learnt about them, tried them somewhere else, adapted something, and this is important. So, but improve is the absolute important. We've had so many occasions where people have written their words down, and the judges can't see how that's any different to what it was before.
Yep, really great points. Karina, one thing that we do look at as judges is the difference between product experience and service. Did you want to just comment on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you can distinguish this in your responses, which might be visually, and you'll see some supporting information coming up in terms of how you can physically structure this response. But what we like to see is a breakdown between a product. So when we think product, think tangible, something that people can touch. It's the bed in the accommodation, it's the room, it's that physical product that you're actually promoting to a visitor to come and use. When we talk experience, we want you to think about, what do your clients participate in? So for example, if you are a restaurant, maybe you actually have a horse and carriage that comes to the property that actually, I'm thinking of, because Laurie's got this picture of a vineyard behind her at the moment, so I'm thinking about wine, okay? So maybe we're going to that restaurant, but we're actually going to experience a food and wine journey in a horse and carriage through the vineyard, where we're doing complimentary wine tasting, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So it's not sitting down at the table, in the restaurant, which would be the product. We're actually experiencing the product out in the open air by the vines, with matching wines and food. We're all getting hungry now. Okay. And then if we look at that service, think about those extra things that you actually provide that makes I always think about it as making your visitors experience just that much better. So for example, if you're a self-contained accommodation property, which maybe it's a self-check-in, you don't actually have somebody on site that meets and greets the client, but maybe what you provide is a service for an external company to come in and provide breakfast hampers or dinner hampers. It could be, if you're a tour operator, that you provide interpretive services where you have bilingual guides. So think about those extra types of things, for want of a better word, that you provide to just set yourself apart a little bit. Now, I will qualify, Laurie, sometimes it can be really tricky. People look at it and I go, I don't know whether it's an experience or a service. Now, in all reality, it doesn't really matter. But what I would encourage you, well, it does matter. I shouldn't say it doesn't really matter. But what I encourage you to do is just pick the winner. Go for which one you think is strongest, and make sure that you've got a spread between your products, experiences and services, so that the judge can see that you appreciate visitors view your experience from a variety of perspectives.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think the way that I've always thought the difference between experience and service could be the experience actually provides an emotive response.
Yes.
Versus service is an expectation, and you might exceed that expectation. So it's sort of aiming for exceeding the expectation of service, but aiming for an emotive response with an experience.
Love that.
Somewhere.
Great way to look at it, definitely.
Fabulous. Now, these are the tips that are in this question. So I think we've covered some of these as we've just spoken. But can I just ask, is there anything here that you could use as an example from one of the submissions our judges might have seen that is a really good way to do it? And I think I reference Nat's points here on use of tables and use of structure of the question. Ron or Karina, have you got an idea of, a really good one that you've read in this question and how it was laid out?
The example is probably a little harder because I've obviously seen too many trying to get that out. But certainly a table, in my opinion, is a great way. And I think last week, Laurie, we looked at using tables to save words. Where literally here you can use dot points. So you can list your products, you can list your services, you can list your experiences. Obviously with enough, again, Laurie, your point about the experience being emotive, don't lose the emotion. Don't just make it so bland that really in the end you've put it down, and we've saved 5 words, but we've lost a beat of our heart as we were marking this. So for me, this is an ideal way, and I think we're coming up to a table shortly. But do use a table here, because what is going to make you do is not forget to list your products, your experiences, and your services. And even as I think, as Karina said, that if we disagree a little about what you think a service or an experience is, but you've got them both down, in most cases, I don't think that's been an issue with me. Because you've got everything down. And so that thing, and also just talking about some of those word guides, they are guides, remember, but what's important that if you go less here, you're going to have to go more somewhere else. If you go more here, you're going to lose the opportunity. And I think most importantly from last week, what we said is don't just write and write and write, and when you get to the last couple of questions, you've got nothing left to say or no words left to say it. So those guides, that's why they're here, is to just give you a little bit of a scaffold or there was some sort of a help to make sure that we keep up the energy and the words and those wonderful emotions and stories that you're going to be telling us all the way through the entry, rather than we end up with something that's fabulous for the first 2 or 3 questions and very, very low in the remainder.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
judge's most frustrating moment, getting to
Yeah,
that
I think
final
so.
question.
Yeah.
Karina, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, look, I agree with everything that Ron has said there. A table is really, really great. I do have one little example that sticks in mind from last year's national judging, and it was actually about a response to more awareness around neurodivergence and those challenges that come for particularly families that have kids that are actually experiencing neurodivergence. And I actually was reading it was an attraction, and they had set up they opened early, a couple of days of the week, and they provided quiet time. So it actually reduced that sensory overload for some of those families. And I loved it because they explained the why they were doing it, okay? And it was about improving the experience for the families that were coming, but it was also about streamlining their business. And it actually opened up a new market for them. And the take-up rate of the sensory hour at this attraction was wonderful to see. And it also made your heart feel really warm. And I think consider those things that you're doing. I mean, that might not be an example for you, but what I want you to think about is the changes that you make in your business and why you make them. That's really important. It's because that is specific to you, and we are looking at what is specific to your business. So you've got to tell us the why behind it. But that was a great example that has stuck with me from last year.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And I think if I can just reiterate that, I think a lot of businesses are so busy doing the doing that they don't realize that they're instigating innovations and these amazing things. They consider it business as usual, but that's the stuff we want to hear, isn't it?
Yep, definitely. Definitely. It's the little things that you do that make the difference. Remember, sweeping statements do not impress judges, because we're not reading a corporate policy document. We want to understand the intricacies of your business. And it can be a tiny example of something little that you've done, but we go, oh my gosh, that was amazing. How did they think of that? So tell us about the little changes you make in your business to improve your business and your visitor experience.
Yeah.
And I think, Karina, people do that every day in their businesses anyway without thinking about it, because they're obviously reacting to whether target market changes, weather, all sorts of things. And so it's a natural business phenomena in many ways.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. So you can see here there's lots and lots of tips to think about those things that, might be business as usual that we want to hear, or, some of the really great things, and giving us that story, as Karina said, tell us the why, tell us what the decision-making process was behind that. I think even Ron mentioned that earlier. To understand that why and taking it right through is telling the story, and certainly something that we really, really want to hear. Okay, so let's get on to setting the scene. And this is a bit of a framework that Natalie shared with us around how to respond, certainly in this particular question. So understanding that the judges need to look at these innovations and judge them. So an overview of the changes is a great way to start. What triggered the changes? And then the process you use to inform your decision. So that's a really good way. After that, then you can actually get into, right, what was the research? What was the stakeholder feedback that might have backed that up? And certainly using that reference, as Ron was saying, the connection to your associations, your destination networks, anyone that you liaise with. You might be receiving the weekly newsletter from one of your destination networks that's highlighted, even like I spoke about the First Nations demand at the moment, or another area that is of focus for your particular destination management plan. How is that research? How is that plan informing you on your particular product? And I think the important thing with this question too is it really does set the story about the ongoing things we're going to hear in marketing and customer experience, and also in sustainability too. Ron or Karina, did you want to just talk about how we often reference back to this question when we're reading other sections?
Yeah, I just very briefly, as we said last week as well, your whole entry is holistic. So really, in the end, it's a flow, and we don't want to find things out halfway through that were not mentioned earlier, and vice versa. Remember last week we spoke about, obviously, your first question in the end becomes a little bit of an executive summary of all the others that we're going to be talking about today and in the future weeks, and obviously, as we said, right at last. But very importantly, the copying and pasting of content from other questions is probably never a good idea. Because literally we will see it, we will find it, and it's an opportunity missed. So please, the word there, reinforce, once again, because you will have made lots of obviously commentary about how you support your local industry and obviously your networks and obviously the destination organizations. And so it's not just a question of saying exactly what you told us there, but the important aspect is this: how does this fit into Laurie, your example of the Indigenous aspect? If that is one of the innovations that you've actually made, this is a great way of bringing that back in there, and so that we can see that there's a terrific flow and continuity all the way through your entry. And yes, we do go backwards and forwards, because quite often I've come across something and I said, hang on a second, this doesn't make sense because it's not what we said earlier. And so we will go backwards and forwards. But the big tip here is just keep whatever you're telling us, make sure that you've planned it. In other words, I think we spoke last week how important just creating a little plan before you start your entry, and make sure that that flow goes all the way through.
Yeah, beautifully said. Karina, anything you want to add?
No, support everything that Ron said there, definitely.
Yeah, wonderful. Yep. Okay, so Natalie's also just highlighted that separating innovations and enhancements is a really good way to go as well, because the difference between an innovation and enhancement can certainly get your thought process right and articulating it to the judges. So she's given us some examples here of some tables, and this is a great one. So she's saying, okay, what is the innovation in your product, in your experience, in your service? So going back to that part of the question where it says, tell us the difference between your products, experience, and services, this helps you do that. So in this question alone, you can actually start pulling this out. What is the rationale behind why you did this? What was the change that you wanted to see with this innovation? And then how does it support your business plan? So again, going back to question 1, which you talked about last week, really reflecting that, and certainly going through and articulating that in this table can certainly help. And of course, likewise, enhancements as well. Karina, can I ask you, where do images fit into this?
Oh, look, I love a good image. And one of the things that I would encourage you with your image, and I'm probably getting as kind of a little bit of a sideways divergence here, is, but sometimes what can be difficult with the use of images is when people do lots of collages and there's multiple images that become a little bit small that the judges can't see. And a really well-placed image will tell a story that your words won't. Okay, and you can actually include a small caption on your image also. I encourage you to put a caption on there, because just a top tip, it can give us a little bit of extra insight. I think it's limited to, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe 10 words or something like that. But, you know, it could be new water reticulation system. And we go, oh, look at that. There's a big pump there and a this and a that. And we link that to your sustainability goals. So I think well-placed images tell a story. So pick them strategically.
Amazing. And yes, you can even reference it back to your table, say, you know, see image below or something like that, so you can talk through it. Ron, did you have any other tips on that one?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Nothing like a hero image. Really says 1,000 words, and it helps that emotive aspect of that we're all looking for. And again, guys, you can see in the rationale how important that feedback, those comments that you're going to be getting back from your customers and your clients, where you can use those as benchmark evidence. So everything that we spoke about earlier today is all going to feed back into these tables and provide us with the evidence that you need. But absolutely, yeah.
Beautiful, which is a perfect segue, Ron, into now what was the outcome? And that's part B. So it's certainly asking you to now respond to the results. And to Ron's point just then, you know, those testimonials that is before could be the rationale to your innovation, but it could be the testimonials post that responds to the outcome of your innovation. So let's have a look at this question a little bit closer. So outcomes is certainly what we're looking for. And again, we're looking at those innovation enhancements. So we can refer back to those tables that you had earlier. So thinking about all the tips in this section, Karina, what have we got to think about with this one?
Oh gosh, look, I love metrics, no surprises there. And so for me, as soon as I see the word outcome, I think, how do I prove what I have done has had a result? And Ron has talked a lot about the use of customer feedback as a testimonial. That is, social proof is a really great point. And this is where you could include some of those, you know, how many 5-star Google reviews you've got, if it's been a customer experience innovation that you've put into place. You could show that you've had a change as a result of building your new yurt. You've had a change in customer feedback where you've grown from 4-star Google reviews, and you now actually have so many 5-star Google reviews. You know, I think about the outcomes in terms of how it's impacted your business. So has it impacted your revenue, your occupancy, your attendance, your, you know, any of those key metrics? I'm just trying to think about the different types of businesses. It might be the average passengers per tour. What is it that you are measuring in that business? And so look at it from a business perspective, a visitor experience, which is going to be customer satisfaction. You might have sustainability outcomes if you have put in a new water reticulation system, which means that you've been able to convert water into, you know, usable water, et cetera, et cetera. So I think link this back to those key performance areas within your business, those strategic areas. And you can see that there's an example in there that has some percentages and real numbers. That's what we actually love to see. Again, one of the queries that we do get, Laurie, is that it might be that somebody has actually executed a new innovation or enhancement very late in the qualifying period, and they haven't had the opportunity to show measured outcomes. That is completely okay. Tell us when that innovation or enhancement actually happened, and just explain that as yet we don't actually have feedback. It might be that you have anecdotal feedback or indicative, you know, comments from clients, but it's also okay if something has happened later in the qualifying period that you're not going to have measured results that you can share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really great points. And there's a question in the chat there. Does sustainability innovation fall under service or experience? That's a really good question.
Look, the way that...
a little bit of both.
Yeah, look, and I think about what type of sustainability innovation is it? Is it something, because it might be better off you talking about it in question 5 and focusing on it as a really discrete, almost project area where you give us more information, because without getting into what happens in question 5, often people are really tired, the coffee pot's run out, and they skim information. So if you've got a super innovative sustainability initiative, you might talk about it in detail in question 5, but think about why you've put it into place. If it has been, sustainability initiatives are often behind the scenes initiatives. They're not necessarily customer facing. So in that instance, I'd send it to question 5 and I'd focus in this question on things that are more product service experience based, which may not be, can I go so far to say it might not be a sustainability initiative? Is that okay to say?
Absolutely.
I think so. That was good.
Yeah.
Laurie, can I just add a couple of little things? Karina covered it really, really well. I like, for example, for big initiatives, return on investment. In other words, spent this much to get that much back. And this could be over a period of years, obviously. Now, remember, you do have, everybody has a business plan. And so for innovation or initiatives or obviously enhancements that were done late in the qualifying period, you will have had goals and objectives set about what your expectations are of those over the next year, the following year, maybe 5 years, whatever it is, tell us. Because that all helps. So once again, we can just see that you've got your finger on the pulse.
Yes, absolutely. Really, really great points. Thank you so much, guys. Guys, it's so valuable to have the judges here. They're reading these submissions and having their tips and hints brought into the perspective here. I hope it's benefiting everyone. It's certainly giving me some more things to think about as well. Not that I'm entering, but some things that I hadn't realized before. So again, going back to Nat's framework, she was talking about summarizing the big results and the learnings. The summary can also introduce some storytelling and some personality, because that's what I think even Karina and Ron have both said today. We're looking for that storytelling. We're looking for that passion. We're looking for you really telling us why you are doing what you're doing. So yeah, definitely make sure it is part of that. It's not just the stats on its own, but yes, even dot point the big stats and facts to save you on that word count, which for those new entrants, you might think 10,000 words is, it's going to be plenty. But as you start getting into it, you'll get to 15,000, 16,000 and go, I need to start scaling back here. So I think that's some really good tips for you there. Okay, the process that Nat has said. Karina, what do you advise them to do when they're actually looking at this part of the question? What do you think is the best process they should go through, even as a team, to get the content they need to put into here?
Yeah, look, I would go out to my entire team, and I think your entire team might be you, yourself and you, or it could be you and your partner. But it could be that you're fortunate to have maybe somebody that helps you with marketing. It might be, most people are going to have a bookkeeper. Okay. I often think of tourist parks. Often your maintenance team or your landscaping team are some of the best people to talk to about what's actually happened in the park. So what I suggest is try not to think that you have all of the answers. Share with your team that you are going on this tourism awards journey, and it's actually about them as well. It's not just about you as a business owner. It's about you collectively. And I think talk to the team and say to them, look, I want you to just walk around your part of the business for the next week and jot down some key things that you have done that has been new in the business this year. Just, it could be anything. Just it's a brain dump. Jot them down and send them through, and then start to actually, regroup in terms of the information. And you can then, once you've got the idea, you can then go, okay, how do we show outcomes? And your bookkeepers are instrumental in this, or your CRM, however you actually manage your client relations and your funds. For example, if it's revenue, talk to those people, Is that kind of, did that answer your question? Yep.
That's absolutely perfect. Because I think people, again, they don't think about some of those things that are just part of the business. And it's by talking to your team, that brings it to the surface, because they'll go, what about? What about?
Yes, that's right. And I think when you're writing your submission, to also acknowledge that you know, Joe, who heads up our landscaping team, came up with a new idea for planting of XYZ natives. You know, we collaborated with the local, often there are, you know, Indigenous planting groups. So you can actually show an affiliation there. And what it's been able to do is achieve XYZ, reduction in watering or whatever it might be. But name the team member, you know, I think it's show that acknowledgement and ascension for the team. We love knowing that you value your team and their inputs. It really is a good feeling. And likewise, you asked me a question earlier about photos. I love a photo that shows me who the team is.
Yes, actually I do too.
Yep. I kind of love going, oh, I reckon that's the person who's written it. You know, you look and go, oh, so because what it does is it draws us as judges closer to your business, because it immediately personalizes your document. So remember, you know, we might be reading 20 submissions in you know, over the course of the judging, and we love reading documents with personality. We don't really want to read a strategic planning document, you know. So give us personality, give us faces. That's what we love.
Love that.
Karina, I can remember quite a few times seeing at the end of the submission, there was, in other words, we wrote this submission and the names of all the different people who had different roles within the organization. And it's terrific. And it gives ownership, I think, to all of them, which is a good business practice anyway, so that they don't feel that you're butting into what they're doing, where they're actually contributing. And then obviously, if you do have success, and I'm sure you will, they share that success with you because they feel that they contributed. So it's a great team building exercise.
Absolutely. And actually, one of the areas that entrants often forget to address when we're talking about innovations and enhancements to products, experiences, and services is the role that staff take in that. So an innovation could have been a whole new training program that you actually put in place for your team to improve the delivery of the service. It's just a slightly different way of looking at it, but I think measurements around team engagement and those sorts of things is highly underestimated in the submissions, and it's something that we as judges do love to read.
You guys are on fire. You perfectly segued to this one as well. So as Natalie's put up here, this template that she's put together, you know, include results for your visitor, your business, your team, and your partners. So
I didn't know it was coming.
Ta-da! So look, it just emphasizes that these tips are real. You know, it's what the judges are looking for. It's what's going to give you the scores that you need, and also highlight your business in the way that we want it to be highlighted. So we can compare apples with apples, but also, you know, you're showing the best of what you have. So we talked a little bit about images, but look, I just wanted to highlight some of these basic rules that are part of the guidelines. Attach a minimum of 2 graphics throughout question 2 to support and enhance. Now, Karina spoke about the beautiful situation of having your team there. I think that is a great one, because if they're part of this business development opportunity, that's a great image to show. And she did also warn around the collage of images. I think everyone goes, oh, I'm allowed 2 images, so I'm going to put 20 in one. See how I go with that. But that actually is detrimental, because we can't see the content of that 20, and it tends to dilute the message of what you're trying to send. Any other tips, Ron, for images, do you think?
Yeah, very importantly, and I think also, I think Karina sort of alluded to that, quite often your innovation and sometimes your enhancement actually comes from a staff member who's actually involved in a particular section of your business. Acknowledge them. And really, in the end, quite often, your staff can obviously be, particularly your front office staff, your people that are obviously at the coalface with your guests, make an enormous difference, and quite often have come up with ways in which the service that they provide is better now because of something that they've implemented. Acknowledge it. And yes, Karina did say, please, no collages. Make sure that you do caption. I think it's a requirement for I think it's in the rules and regs now, that you do caption your little image. And as I said last week, please, nothing from Google Images. We don't need little hearts and green green ticks and various other things. Just make sure that it's your business, your staff, your innovation, your enhancement, whatever it is, and then we're on the same page as you are.
Yeah, wonderful. And my final tip for images is make sure they're relevant. Make sure they're relevant to the content that you're talking about, because it can often throw a judge. What's this? And it doesn't sort of have any application to what you're talking about. Now, look, the portal has improved quite a lot over recent years. I remember the first time we went online and oh my goodness, the problems we had with the tourism boards back then. But now it's actually a little bit more user-friendly. It's becoming even more so. So if you have any troubles though, please reach out to Dom or Sarah and they'll certainly guide you through the portal. Now, the thing to remember is hyperlinks are not permitted in your text. So the judge is not to go off the portal. And this is for security and privacy reasons. So just make sure that you remember that. And also, don't forget with your content that we can't accept any video. So unfortunately, the system is around your business planning, your strive for excellence. Where video counts is in the top tourism towns. So if you are a destination, we'd love to see your videos in the top tourism towns, and that'll be open at the end of the year again. But for the New South Wales Tourism Awards, it's about business, and we want to ensure it's about business practice, not necessarily, you know, showing us all the videos that you have. We'd love to see them, of course, but it's not about judging. We can't judge the videos. Karina, did you want to add anything to that one?
Actually just wanted to ask a question because there might be some people actually that are on today's webinar that are in the festivals and events category and the tourism marketing category. And previously there was enabled a short promotional video of the events.
Correct. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to check if they were still able to do that or whether that had changed.
Yes, thank you very much. I did forget that category. I'm looking at the major tourist attraction category because there's other categories out there, and that is correct. So depending on your category, we do allow short promotional videos, but certainly for the attractions, the accommodation categories, yes, there is no option there. So thank you so much. Ron, anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, just again to stress, no hyperlinks, please, because the judges won't go into. So anything that you're wanting us to show us will be unseen, because literally that's obviously seen as either someone trying to obviously go above the 10,000 word link and limit, and or otherwise take us to something that we really is irrelevant to what we're actually looking at. So please, no hyperlinks.
Absolutely. Karina, last words, anything? No, you've covered so much. I don't think there's anything left. No, that's great. Well, guys, it's 5 minutes left, and we have time for a few questions. So if you want to certainly unmute yourself, stick your hand up or whatever. But please join us for next week. We are talking about question 3. So it's all about marketing next week. Then we have our customer experiences on the 30th of July, responsible tourism on the 6th of August. Now that one, if you haven't got that in your diary, I encourage you to come along, because I have to say, on average, that is the worst scored category question. Am I correct, Karina?
Absolutely. And that is your huge competitive advantage. If you nail that just by spending a little bit of extra time on it, you will actually, just huge advantage. Don't discount it is all I can say.
100% agree.
Yeah. And the 13th of August and 20th of August, it's all about you. So if you have any questions as you're trying to finalize your last submission, you can jump on and just talk to us. So there'll be judges and admin staff and everyone that can there to support you. So just come along and ask your questions to that one. So does anyone have any questions on that note? Please feel free to unmute and stick your hand up. I might close the recording now so that we can allow you to